Usyk did tell me in a brilliant interview I did off microphone that of course he'll fight Fury. I've beaten him twice over 24 rounds. Of course I'll fight him.
Come on then, Bunce. This doesn't seem to be getting the attention that, say, Fury Usyk in Riyadh got before Christmas.
You know what, the pair of you, I can't quite understand it, because we're going to get 100,000 people there. We've got the great Oleksandr Usyk, one of the top 10 best fighters of the last 25, 50 years. We've got Daniel Dubois, this star potential, this talent, this kid that's on this road of redemption. And we've got 100,000 odd people. And we've got an undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. And yet I jump in a taxi
on British soil. On British soil.
On British soil, and that's pivotal. Don't jump ahead, because I know where I'm going, chappers. Trust me.
Oh, sorry.
I'm gonna get there in a second, son. I'm gonna get there in a second. And the British soil thing's really important. And yet it's not caught on, not just yet. But believe it or not, even though they've nearly done 100,000 tickets, it's been a slow boil, a slow burn. It will take off in the last couple of days. And that's when the awareness will spread. So there will be a lot of anticipation once the first bell goes. The reason it's on British soil is quite simple. It gives Daniel Dubois every single possible advantage he could have. And he needs every single possible advantage he can get.
Is it because they're fighting for space in a crowded sporting landscape? We've already discussed the stuff that's been going on last week. When you consider this is the off season of the football season, you know, there's been so from test matches to the denouement of Wimbledon to the start of Royal Portrush and the British Masters. Is it that, or is it just that Daniel Dubois hasn't really kind of resonated with the British public yet?
Well, Daniel's not a great talker, Gabby. I mean, and that's being polite. He's not a great talker. 3 or 4 words is basically a massive sentence from Daniel. Having his eye single contact for more than 5 seconds is an absolute feat, unless you've got the geezer by the ears, I can assure you. So, but that's not... Daniel wasn't built on him selling stories and throwing tables and being vulgar. He's the worst swearer in history. If you ask him to swear, you can ask him to swear. You give him a word, it would be the kind of thing you'd do with a friend who can't pronounce German words in a pub if you're all drunk, and he'll get the swear word and he'll swear, and it just sounds ridiculous. So he's not a naturally effusive character. He's not made for microphones in his face. He's not made for having people asking him loads of prying questions. So I said to him, "What do you have to do to win?" And he looked at me, and 13 seconds later he went, "I have to win." And I said, no, that's what you have to do. What do you have to do to win? So then he looked at me again and he went, "I have to win." Chappers, I told you about my scintillating interviews with him. I hold my hands up. If I have a stinker with a fighter, I'll hold my hands up. If I have a beautiful in-depth one where the guy leans across and he's crying and I'm crying, I'll also say, give me some praise. I've done 2 stinkers this week, one with Oleksandr Usyk and one with Daniel Dubois. It's not been my best week, Chappers. It's not been my best week.
But he has a good chance, doesn't he? He might not be able to sell his fight, but he has a good chance of winning his fight.
And that's what has sold it. The fact that this kid, since he last fought Oleksandr Usyk and he finished in the 9th round, capitulation, took a heavy shot, took a step back, took a knee, failed to beat the count. He faced some criticism. He came back for some really dark places. It looked like he might walk away from the sport. He came back in 3 fights in 10 months, which is rare in the boxing calendar for a top caliber fighter. 3 fights in 10 months, and he stopped all 3 of the opponents. And I would argue he was an underdog in all 3 of those fights. So that built momentum. After the first, there was momentum. After the third, which was about 105,000 people last September at Wembley when he knocked out Anthony Joshua clean with that right hand in the 5th round. Trust me, that leaves a brilliant message. So boxing people like him, and I would say people in sport like him. But is he going to drag the general public in like Al Ricky did all those years ago, or like Tyson Fury did, or even like David Haye did? The answer is no. And even if he knocks out Usyk in 2 rounds, he's still might not drag in the general public. Grannies are never going to ask you about him in the co-op shopping on a Sunday like they did with Nassim, like they did with Kawasaki, like they did with Tyson Fury.
And obviously Fury, you bring him up there, and he's hinted that he will fight Usyk in a trilogy fight at Wembley next April. Frank Warren said Fury's definitely not going to fight again this year, but that he does want to fight Usyk. Well, how does this fight play into those plans?
Well, if this fight's not careful, a fight that might happen next year is going to become bigger than this fight. Fury's been told to rein it in a little bit because it's a bit of an insult to Daniel Dubois, who's meant to be his promotional teammate, to talk about fighting the guy that Dubois is fighting next year. Usyk did tell me in a brilliant interview I did off microphone that of course he'll fight Fury. I've beaten him twice over 24 rounds. Of course I'll fight him. If there's 85 million or 100 million on the table, that's a minimum, really. So, of course, Usyk will fight him. He'll pick his fights with care. And Fury, because he's getting on and his joints are falling apart, and I really mean that, it's too many years of training camps, not the actual boxing. It's the 10-week training camps when you start training camp at 24 stone and you come down to 19 stone over a 10-week period. That's what takes its toll on heavyweights especially. It takes its toll on 12-year-old gymnasts. It takes its toll on 14-year-old footballers in a hard season or a hard training camp. So with boxers, it takes its toll. So Fury is out there as a possibility, but I still think he's playing a little bit. I still think he's feeling the ground. He's just putting out feelers. Is there definitely 100 million for me? He's thinking, and he doesn't want to have any build-up fights. He wants to go straight into some victory night.
If and by the time some people listen to this, the fight may have happened. So if Usyk has won it, he becomes a 2-time undisputed world heavyweight champion, which puts him in the same group as Foreman, Holyfield, Lennox Lewis and Muhammad Ali. They're the only 4, and he'd be the first to do it in a 4-belt
era. I've got to be honest with you, when Usyk turned professional after the Olympics, or soon after the Olympics in London 2012, when he won a gold medal, and I converted the football commentator Darren Fletcher into the biggest Ukrainian boxing fan in history, and he was screaming like a child at a Boys Own concert, Daniel, old Fletcher. It was lovely to watch that night. Since then, He's become even better. So he wins the cruiserweight world titles, all 4 of them, on the road. One in Liverpool, one in Moscow, one in Estonia. Defends in America. He's all over the place. He can't fight in Kiev. There's no business there, even before the war that's going on. And then he moves up to heavyweight, and we've been reluctant to give him the credit he deserves. 2 victories over Fury, 2 victories over Joshua. He stops Daniel Dubois. He easily beats Derek Del Boy Chisora. He knocks out Tony Bellew. And still we're saying, yeah, but he's still only a cruiserweight. I mean, we're finding so many excuses instead of just saying, you know what? This guy is a boxing god. He's a genius on angles. He's a genius on fractions. Because if boxing was based just on pure muscles and the size of your chest, every bodybuilder in the world would be a world champion. Most of what happens is in here, and there are no muscles inside your head. It's mucus and little other stuff. It's tricky inside your brain. Trust me, chappers. And that's the stuff. That's what wins fights. And Usyk wins fights with fractions of inches. He just does it. He's just a half inch closer, or he's a half inch further away. He's a genius to what, and he's a great character.
I trust you. I don't want you to operate on me, but I trust you.
I'm cheap.
Unavailable.
Thank you, Gabby. Thank you.
And on the flip side, for those people who might be listening to this after the fight, of course, if Daniel wins, then Lennox Lewis was the last British undisputed heavyweight champion in 1999. So, you, I'm sure, were around that era and that time when he was fighting Evander Holyfield and
Tyson,
his.
You know what? I thought that period, that 90s, was a great decade. We get the early Ricky, we get Nassim Hamid, we get early Joe Calzaghe, we get Frank Bruno in glory, then we get Lennox Lewis in glory, and we rule the boxing world, and the boxing's taking place mostly in Great Britain, apart from Lennox Lewis's fights. I thought that was a great period, but we've had a 5 or 6 year revolution in heavyweight boxing. We've been outside. In the 70s, we didn't go outside. In the 80s, we went outside a couple of times. In the 90s, we went outside a couple of times. But this last 6 or 7 years, we've been outside about 10 times with crowds in excess of 70,000. Anthony Joshua, here's a little fact for you, and if this was the end of the show, it's a great ending, so maybe you want to put it in later. I'm just helping the guys out. It's like, do you know there's 17 people in the production room here? 17! I'm telling you.
Buncey, there's normally 2. They've all come for you. 15 of them
there
are
might be.
They come to see you.
I've never seen so many people. It's outrageous. Anyway, this is a true story, chappers. The most watched boxer in history. That means actual human beings watching him fight in history. Isn't any of the greats like Dempsey and Marciano or Ali, the most watched fighter in history is Anthony Joshua. More people have paid to go through the turnstile to watch Anthony Joshua than any man or woman in boxing history, because he's had 7 or 8 80,000 fights. 80,000 plus fights. It's quite ridiculous. We're living in cherished times, boys and girls. We really are.
This is the first time in history that this will be an undisputed, all belts being fought for in the UK.
Absolutely, because when Muhammad Ali defended his world title in the 60s, in 1966, he had 2 fights. That was just one version of the title. And when Tim Witherspoon came over to let Frank Bruno have a crack, it was just one version of a title. When Lennox Lewis won the title and came back and beat Frank Bruno, it was just one version. Ditto David Haye, ditto Tyson Fury against Dillian Whyte. This is it. This is the first time that it's first time it's a full undisputed heavyweight title fight in Great Britain. We've been putting on heavyweight championship fights for over 100 years. So it is history. It is history. I want to go out on a soapbox in Trafalgar Square and do a little bit of preaching. I've got no problem with that.
Well, you're only around the corner.
Exactly.
I've just had WhatsApps from 17 people saying this is where we should end it. So.
And that didn't come in 10 minutes ago, did it?
Always a pleasure to see you, Buncey. Have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy it. And hopefully it'll cut above the noise of what Chappers is off to now, which is Rory on the march at Royal Portrush.
Yeah, well, I'm no comment on that one because that's quite special as well.
The Sports Agents
with Gabby Logan and Mark Chapman.